Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today I wanted to just do a quick video, pop on, and cover a Marissa Matthews TikTok. I almost said tweet for some reason. But anyways, so this is in regard to identifying with being fat. I want to play this and kind of discuss it because it might give us a bit more insight into specifically why fat activists identify with fatness for political reasons. I don't know how else to say it, or in that rhetorical sense, because this was really kind of interesting to me. So let's go ahead. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the whole thing through, and then we're gonna go over it piece by piece. Okay. So for anybody who's just listening, the comment that she's responding to says, "A person might have fat, but can't be fat itself. In my opinion, you are attractive, voluptuous, creative, brilliant, outgoing, hilarious, colorful, and freaking awesome." Okay, so it's not a hate comment or anything. Now let's go ahead and listen to what she has to say.
No, I am fat, and your comment is actually very invalidating, so let me explain why. I'm literally fat because I'm fat. But yes, I am attractive, I'm voluptuous, I'm creative, I'm brilliant, outgoing, hilarious, colorful, and freaking awesome. I'm all of those things, but I'm also fat. Fat does not mean ugly. Fat does not mean unworthy. Fat does not mean disgusting. Fat does not mean any of those biased stereotypes that diet culture has told you that fat means. Fat has never meant or equaled those things before. And a lot of fat people are reclaiming the word fat because they don't actually mean those things, and it's just a descriptive word to describe our bodies. So by you telling me that I'm not fat, it's very invalidating. And by you telling me that I'm not fat, it's invalidating my personal experience as a fat person in our fat-phobic society. And I don't think that's what you're trying to do here. No, I am.
Okay, so I find this really bizarre, just for a couple different reasons. Fatness is subjective. So somebody can feel like they're fat if they're 5 pounds overweight or something. Somebody can feel like they're fat if they're 200 pounds overweight. Somebody can even feel that they're fat when they're not. Okay? It's a very, very subjective term. It's a very subjective, feeling-based, somebody who they can somebody who's not obese can look in the mirror one day and feel like they look fat, and then look another day and they don't feel like they look fat. There's no hard line. There's no binary in terms of fatness. It is subjective. I try my best to utilize different categories, and I even use their own, fat activist type of stuff just to kind of explain the differences of a spectrum of size. So I will describe myself in a social sense as super fat, which is where I was a year ago, or not really, I don't know about a year ago, but when I started doing this work, for sure, especially the beginning of 2023, I was still there, but especially even before that, which I do have some videos where I show how big I was, and I have a picture on my community page if you want to see. So I talk about super fat, mid-fat, small fat, mid-size, and then thin. I would say thin. I think saying straight size is kind of weird, and I'm just not going to use that one. So anyways, I'm currently, I'm like right in between mid-fat and small fat. I don't know. But again, these lines are very subjective. So I don't really know where I would lie on that, but that's just the thing about it that's so odd, is that it is so subjective. You can't it's hard for me to see the person commenting as wrong, because fat is not objective at all. Like if they were to say Marissa is obese or super morbidly obese, that would be more of an objective statement. That's a very specific thing. If you were to say overweight, it's more objective. Okay, so when you say overweight, then you think, okay, they're above a healthy weight in the BMI, which it can mean a lot of different things. Or you say they're obese. People know what that means. Morbidly obese, super morbidly obese. You can think of different pictures in your mind. If I say fat, it could be anything. It could be anything. So to me, I've always felt that this choice of the word fat, although I do personally use it on my channel as an umbrella term, it is a way of manipulating language because it just doesn't really make that much sense the way that they use it. Because when they say fat phobic, what does that mean, right? Because fat is so subjective. It's difficult. Which again, I don't know if fat phobia is a thing. I don't. Because it's based on something so subjective, it's difficult. It's just weird. It's so weird. I don't want to get into my thoughts on it because you guys know YouTube doesn't like it, but I think it has more to do with toxic ritualistic behaviors. I think that that's much more of the issue when it comes to fat phobia. Both people on the side where they don't eat very much and the side where they eat too much, right? That's where this fat phobia comes in. It usually comes in with something like that. It's usually people that have internalized issues, or they're like dealing with somebody where they have to sit on a plane and like be squished or something. That makes sense to me. And they're just like, oh my gosh, that's, They kind of cannot stand that person in that moment. But it's because somebody's size is actually impeding on them. So it's like, okay, that makes sense in that circumstance. In my mind, anyways. I wouldn't think that somebody would necessarily have internalized issues because they don't want to be smothered on a seat on an airplane. Okay? So, anyways, let's go ahead and break down her statements piece by piece. I feel like she manipulates a bit in this. It's weird. Okay.
Fat, and your comment is actually very invalidating.
So when she says that a comment is invalidating, I feel like she's trying to shame somebody for saying something. So she's applying judgment and shame towards a statement that honestly is kind of innocuous at most. I can understand what she's saying on a social level, that being fat is a social category. I can understand that. Again, in most of these conversations, they never talk about health. They never talk about anything relating to the physical issues of obesity. But go on.
Let me explain why. I'm literally fat.
Again, so she says, I'm literally fat. Okay. Well, what if that person doesn't see you that way? It's not exactly objective.
Because I'm fat.
Okay. So you're using, what is it? You're using the word to define itself. It's not working.
But yes, I am attractive, I'm voluptuous, I'm creative, I'm brilliant, outgoing, hilarious, colorful, and freaking awesome. I'm all of those things, but I'm also fat.
Okay. Okay.
Fat does not mean ugly. Fat does not mean unworthy. Fat does not mean disgusting. Fat does not mean any of those biased stereotypes that diet culture has told you that fat.
It's interesting because she's trying to define a word by what it isn't, which I think is not the best either. Say what fat means then. Like I said, I'm aware that fat is more of a feeling because when you say fat, nobody knows exactly what you're talking about. Like I could tell you guys, I could say fat And some of you will think of actual fat cells. Some of you think of diet. Some of you will think of somebody who's a little bit chunky. Some of you will think of somebody who's massively huge, right? It's not a very well-defined word. If I just said fat, it's like, okay, yes, a social category does exist, like I said, but it's still loose. If somebody doesn't feel like you're fat, you can't really say, well, that's not true. I've had people tell me in comments, like, I think kind of stupidly, but I've had people tell me in comments, you're not even fat. Why are you commenting on that? I don't know. I guess because I look different when I'm sitting like this, but I'm like, no, I definitely am. I'm still morbidly obese. See, but I can say I'm morbidly obese. That's more objective, you see? So it paints a picture, but it's like people can still have a perception that you're not fat or that you are fat, and people have perceptions that they're fat when they're not all the time. But again, it goes into that ritualistic behavior that I don't want to talk about, Anyways.
That means fat has never meant or equaled those things before. And a lot of fat people are reclaiming the word fat because they don't actually mean those things, and it's just a descriptive word to describe our bodies.
Okay. Yes, but it's a very subjective term to describe your body. It's different. So they try to say that it's like tall or short, but you still have an average height that you can kind of go on. So it's not exactly the same. Fat can be anything. If I say tall, you guys can all think of the same thing. If I say short, you're all going to think of the same thing in terms of a person's body. If I say fat, you could all think of different things. It just doesn't work. If I say super morbidly obese, you're all thinking the same thing. If I say thin, you're all thinking the same thing. Fat is too subjective of a word, which is why I think they use it, because they can chameleon it and act like it is objective when necessary, but then act like it's subjective when necessary. It's very strange.
So by you telling me that I'm not fat, it's very invalidating. And by you telling me that I'm not fat, it's invalidating my personal experience as a fat person in our
fat-phobic society. So she's trying to say you're invalidating the pain, the suffering, the things that I go through as a fat person by not acknowledging that I'm fat. So again, trying to create a sort of objectivity within a subjective term, because you guys also say that if somebody feels like they're fat, they still don't have the oppression that you have. So what is the line? What is the objective thing? There has to be some kind of objective thing. And there isn't in anything you guys say, because it's a spectrum. It's not something binary. You're not fat one day and thin the next. It doesn't work like that. You're not thin one day and fat the next. It doesn't work like that. So therefore, how can you determine when somebody's fat phobic against you? It's just, I feel like the more I've thought about it, it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. Because it's like, I don't know, I think it would be better if it was like obesophobia or something. That would kind of make more sense to me, because it actually paints a picture. I don't know.
Don't think that's what you're trying to do here.
So yeah, I think that there's also I have to touch on this too. I think there's a lot of issues with identifying with obesity. I don't know how else to say it, because again, I want to speak clearly on this channel. I think identifying with obesity is very toxic for a lot of different reasons, because it is preventable, and it is a state of illness that is preventable. And so if you identify with a preventable illness, it can prevent you from fixing the issue when you can fix it. I think it's horrible, truly. And I resent my ritualistic behaviors that led to me identifying with obesity in my past. And so when I see someone like Marissa and she's doing the same thing, I feel bad for her. And I just wish she could see it. I wish she could have kind of like an epiphany or an aha moment and see how wrong she is. And I don't quite remember when that changed for me, but I want to know, I want you guys to comment when it changed for you. If you've lost weight, if you've lost a significant amount of weight, whether it's from obesity and beyond, really, if you were in an obese category and you lost weight, when did you stop identifying with your obesity? And what thought process led to that? I think that that's an interesting topic to explore. And I would love to hear your responses. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys again tomorrow. By the way, tomorrow's my birthday. So yeah, I'm still going to post. I'm going to have to film like 2 videos tomorrow. That's really hard for me. No, I'm just kidding. I like filming one for some reason. I don't know why, but I like filming them and I like doing it up to date, but I'm also going on a trip. So I'm going to have to film some in advance. And I'm just like, I'm going to have to film more before I go. And I'm like, I don't like to do that. I like it being in real time. I feel like it's more on point because you guys can kind of see my progress throughout like the times, or throughout time. Because it's kind of cool to me that like a video from like a week ago is actually from a week ago. You know what I mean? I don't know. I like it. It's a weird artistic integrity thing. I'm going on too long about it. But I'm going to have to film some videos beforehand. So I'm going to have to get over it. I do have some ideas though. But thank you guys so much for watching. And I will see you guys again tomorrow. See you later. Bye.